UCF basketball is so close to something special, but how do they get over the hump?
You are Locked On UCF, your daily podcast on the UCF Knights, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on in to Locked On UCF, your daily UCF podcast. I'm your host, Mike G, and thank you so much for making Locked On UCF your first listen of every day. For the first word on this show is my guy, Andrew Gluco from The Last Word on Sports. Andrew, UCF basketball is so close to something special. A close loss to Houston. It was a little brutal to watch at times, in watching it. Keshawn Hall had the super huge performance just a few nights before, but went 2 of 6 from the free throw line in a game that they lost by 1 point. Your thoughts, sir, on UCF basketball and the close loss? I thought they acquitted themselves well against one of the best teams in the country.
And if you recall, this was the one game I mentioned that they could steal. The last time we talked about this a little bit ahead of the game, they had to take one of those big 3 matchups coming up. This was the one that had all signs that it was a home game. They've had success against Houston. They matched up well. And the first half, they took a 8-point halftime lead. But you talk about Keshawn Hall. He struggled. And this was the X factor. Now, we did talk about how other players step up, like Mustafa Sham had an outstanding game. He just absolutely owned the court. But Keshawn Hall, your team leading scorer, kind of vanished in this big moment when they needed him. He had that big clutch shot at the end of the game, but I mean, where was he the rest of it? They needed him. It should not have been that close. They should have won this game. This one is going to hurt because they let the victory slip through their fingers on a shot in the very last second of the game, and there wasn't much you could do after that point.
2 of 12 is such an anomalous result for him as well, too. Like if you play this game 10 times, he does not go 2 of 12 again. Right. It was such a weird game, I think, for UCF. Now, look, shooting was about even. These two teams, Houston got off 7 more shots than UCF did. They shot 40% from the field. Houston shot 42% from the field. Neither team was super great from 3-point range, although UCF had the edge there. And 64% from the free throw line just really kills you in a game like this, right? Like you're going up against a top 10 opponent, and you've got to get the win. And you just got, if you hit free throws, man, you maybe win this game, even despite your leading scorer going 2 for 12.
Well, I mean, you're punching up, big time in this kind of game. You can't afford mental mistakes, and free throw shooting is mental. That's concentration. It's the focus aspect. Those are, as you like to use the term, unforced errors. Free throws, missing them 64%. You expect that, back in the days of Conference USA. This is a team that has to be, 75% plus if they want to be taken seriously. And boy, this is the loss that hurts, because you had the win in your hands. You got 3 seconds on the clock to just get in front, stop them, do something. And they get the shot off. They get it in, a second left, no timeouts left at this point. There really wasn't much that can be done. At that point, it's like, I was watching the end of that game, and my heart just sank, because you're in an arena like that. And I've been I've been in person to some wild games over the years, and you're in a game, you're a fan in the arena, and you're there. The energy with 3 seconds to go, you're up by 1. Houston takes the timeout, brings the ball up, and you're just, the roof's about to explode. And the fans are getting ready. They're going to storm the court if they hold on to this. And then to see it all taken away within 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Absolutely deflates the entire arena. And you got to feel for the people that were there that would just had all that energy that helped the team, because they create that home court advantage and just it falls through. Now, I do want to point out UCF still has multiple quadrant 1 victories under their belt. So that's what's keeping them in the hunt, but they really got to find a way to steal a win here.
They do. I know Hall had a tough night, but superlatives, and you mentioned Mustafa going 7 of 10 from the field and 18 points to lead UCF, and scoring certainly helped keep them in it. He also added 5 rebounds and 3 blocks, Andrew. So it was a great night for him. Darius Johnson, 5 for 16, also stood out to me, 13 points. And then Jordan Ivan Curry, he was only 4 for 10 from the field, but he added 14 points, perfect from the free throw line. And this one, he added 3 rebounds and a block. Look, this is a pretty well-rounded team, and you just got to find a way to win the close ones. And I think that's where that's the line of fire that UCF has to cross. When it comes down to it, who's going to make the big play? Who's going to keep you out of that situation where the talent takes over and the more talented team gets you at the end? I thought UCF had a golden opportunity here to really get one. And you called it. You said this was the gettable game in this stretch. And man, they let it slip through their fingers. Before we move on, if you're UCF, you've got a big one coming that we're going to talk about in the next segment, but how do you stop this from happening again? Like, what do you see? What do you go back to the drawing board on?
Well, I mean, you just got to continue, play loose, don't get too tight. This one, you let it slip through your fingers, but you don't want to lose confidence. You got to remember, you took a team that is ranked number 3 in the net to the wire. Yeah. So it shows you can play with anyone. Don't let the number next to the team scare you off or intimidate you. It was a good way to kind of wipe off the effects of the Kansas game, where just anything and everything went wrong. This is a game where a lot of things went right, and it went to the wire against one of the best teams in the country. They can hang with anyone, and they have to remember that as they go into their pregame and everything, and not let early momentum problems completely derail them, which is what happened with Kansas. They had some early momentum problems and it just derailed them. Against Houston, they took it to them. They had a halftime lead. They looked comfortable, but Houston's one of the best teams in the country for a reason. They chipped away. They've been in these positions before, and that's the other thing. UCF's not a school that has a lot of good history, and even with under Johnny Dawkins, who has been their most successful Division I coach, UCF really hasn't accomplished a whole lot historically. Houston has, and they have players who have currently on the roster, and I think that played a role in it too. Is they had that psychological advantage, and they were able to just kind of get inside players' heads, and make those unforced errors start compounding themselves. UCF just has to be able to wipe them, wipe it off, get that egg off your face, stand back up, and get ready to go on the road against Iowa State. It's a very tough matchup coming up on Tuesday night, and this is a great opportunity to really send a message that this is not a pushover team.
As you mentioned, no rest for the weary. Iowa State is up next. We're going to talk about their prospects of beating top 5 Iowa State right after a quick word from our sponsors. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. As we are recording this, Ohio State is national champions of college football, and I made money again betting with the Buckeyes. I'm so happy. Like I said I'd mention it until the end of time. I bet on them to beat Oregon. They beat Oregon. I bet on them to beat Notre Dame. They beat Notre Dame. The moral of this story is sign up for FanDuel and bet on Ohio State, Andrew.
Well, I mean, again, I'm biased. I'm from there. I'm going to bet on Ohio State anyway. So yeah, it's going to be. I've already gotten texts from my family up there, celebrating the win. But hey, this was at the end of this game was big. If you put a bet on the spread, because that spread wasn't decided until the last minute of the game.
Yeah, it
Just
wasn't.
saying.
It wasn't. But look, no matter who you decide to bet on, even if it's not on Ohio State, I don't know why you would do that. Do it with our friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. You're guaranteed $200 in bonus bets with your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Iowa State is up next. Again, no rest for the weary, Andrew. The UCF Knights have got another top matchup, and this schedule represents opportunities. And this is how I like to look at it for UCF. You got opportunities to prove yourself. You're going to have to get those big quad one wins. Number 3, Iowa State on the road is another big in-conference game. This is a blessing for UCF to be able to have these games on your schedule so that there's no doubt in the committee's mind come Selection Sunday that you can get a big win, and it may come down to that big marquee win. You missed the opportunity against Houston. This feels like more of a must to get, and it's a tall task on the road, I understand, but this feels like a must get for UCF after dropping a close one to Houston.
Well, I think they have a better chance against Iowa State than Kansas. They don't match up well against Kansas. But against Iowa State, look at the circumstances. Iowa State just lost their last game against West Virginia. So they're coming off a loss. This is a chance for UCF to kind of, catch them a little bit. Oh, maybe overcompensating for the loss. There's an opportunity here. It's not a team that's completely riding high. They were very solid first half of the year. The only loss was against Auburn by 2 points. I mean that's a toss up right that one.
Yep.
Yeah, the #1 Auburn Tigers. So, I mean, this is a really good Iowa State team, but the fact that they stumbled against West Virginia, who is a very good team in itself, I would say they're better than UCF. There's still an opportunity to kind of sneak in there and kind of give them an uppercut. So UCF has to come with a really aggressive mindset, look to be the hunter instead of the hunted. And try to not be prey to a team that talent-wise is better than them. But the better team doesn't always win the game. That's why they play them. So there's an opportunity here to really send a message to the rest of the Big 12. I mean, UCF has already, they surprised teams last year by being able to hang and upending Kansas. They need to have another marquee win this year. We'll talk about their chances, for the big dance. They're in the hunt. No doubt about it. They are in the hunt, but they can't keep losing these top end games. They gotta break, break that trend somewhere if they want to be in the real discussion for an at-large spot.
Now, I want to be clear here when we talk about they got to break the trend. They've played 7 quad one games, and they're 3-4 in quad one games. So this game against Iowa State will be their 8th quad one. And if you win it, you're 4-4 in quad one games, and that's a pretty good resume to date. So that's what this game represents. Now, this is the first of 2 matchups against Iowa State, but you need Keshawn Hall to show up in this one. He can't have another night like he had against Houston. I think if you're going to have a chance, I think Iowa State is a better team than Houston. Now, I mean, you guys know I cover the Auburn Tigers. Auburn played both those teams already in the non-conference. I watched them beat both those teams, and in my opinion, watching them against Iowa State, I think Iowa State is a better team than Houston. So this win would be a bigger win than the one against Houston, and it might bolster come Selection Sunday if you're on the bubble and you can claim a road quad one win against the third ranked team in the country. I think that weighs in your favor. And the committee has shown us year in and year out they don't give a damn what happens in that conference tournament unless you're not going to make it and you win it all. But whatever you are going into that conference tournament, they've shown us year after year, it doesn't matter what you do. You can go on a run. You can make it all the way to the conference title game and lose. But if they thought that you were out going into that conference title game, you're going to be out. So I think that you need to take that off the table if you're UCF, and that's what this game versus Iowa State does for you.
Yeah, I mean, they had the win against Texas Tech, away, one of their quad one wins, and you don't want that to be viewed as a fluke. You want that to be viewed as this was a legit win. They outplayed them, not that Texas Tech just dropped the ball. And I think the Houston win against Houston would have really solidified that. But there are other opportunities, even past this Kansas game that's going to happen next week. You got BYU, top 50. Cincinnati, top 50. Baylor, top 30. Then you got the Iowa State, home game. So, I mean, you've got other opportunities to get, high quad 2, low quad 1 games in there to bolster the resume. That's why UCF still talked about as one of the teams in the NCAA bubble.
Yeah, agreed. Look, at the end of the day, Curtis Jones and Keshawn Gilbert for Iowa State, I think, represent significant challenges for UCF defensively. You got to slow one of those two guys down from a scoring standpoint. I think if you want to have a chance on this one, particularly in their house. But then, like I said, you need a good, solid game from Keshawn Hall. If he hits his averages, you win by maybe double digits versus Houston. So if he has an average game here, I think that could be the difference if all things hold true. But you got to slow, you've got to slow those guys down. I think if you want Curtis Jones and Keshawn Gilbert, if you want to have a chance, again, I think they're a better tandem than anything that Houston has, and they're going to be a tough team to stop.
Yeah, you got to keep out of foul trouble. That's a big one. You got to maintain composure and not allow the Iowa State fan base to really establish that momentum, because you're playing on the road, and that's a tough arena to play in. It's loud. It's not just Cyclone by name. It's a tough place to play. So you have to hit early. Make your shots, and you got to cause Iowa State, just in general, make unforced errors, make mistakes. And then the more important side is capitalize on them. And that's an area that UCF has struggled at times, is capitalizing on mistakes that others have made. Arizona, kept them in the game, and they just could not get over the hump. Houston, same thing. Could not get over the hump. So they have to be able to learn how to capitalize on mistakes and get in teams' heads. If you do that, you get in their head, and then the mistakes start compounding themselves. UCF hasn't quite figured that out yet.
Yeah, I agree. But look, their tournament chances are strong right now if they can handle business over this next stretch. So what do they have to do to get into the tournament and not be in that first four in, first four out conversation? We're going to talk about their tournament chances right after a quick word from our sponsors. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks, Andrew. Prize Picks does something that I love. They will give you just random free bets all the time.
Free
I open
stuff's
my
great.
app up and bam, here's $20 to bet on the NBA. But look, it's a place to get real money sports action in with over 10 million members and billions in winnings. Prize Pick has changed the daily fantasy sports game. Whether it's the playoffs or the regular season, Prize Picks has made it easier than ever to win big while enjoying all the football action or the basketball action. Ready to run your game this football season? Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 off instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 off for playing. Don't wait. Take your game to the next level with Prize Picks. Prize Picks. Run your game. Andrew, I mentioned that you got 7 quad 1 games on your schedule so far. You've won 3 of them. You've lost 4 of them. Some close losses in there. But, for reference, I want to run through the top 10 right now. At number 1, Auburn. Nobody's played more quad 1 games than Auburn, and good God, the way the SEC is stacked up, they may have like 20 quad 1 games on their schedule by the end of the year, but they're 10-1 in quad 1 games. This is why they sit at number 1 right now. Duke has played 6 quad 1 games. So you played one more quad 1 game than Duke has so far this year. Houston, who you just lost to, 2-3 in quad 1 games. So they have lost more than they have won, but they've only played 5 quad 1 games so far this year. Tennessee, 5-2 in quad 1 games. So they played the same amount as you. Florida, 4-2 in quad 1s. Iowa State, who you have next, 5-2 in quad 1s. So they've got 7 on their slate right now. Alabama, 5-3 in quad 1s. Illinois, 4-4 in quad 1s. Kansas, 4-4 in quad 1s. Purdue, 4-4 in quad 1s. If like there are teams in the top 10 right now sitting at 4-4 in quad 1 games. If you can get 4 quad 1 wins at this point in the season, that puts you in elite company, and I think that puts you squarely in the tournament conversation.
Absolutely. And if you look at now, ESPN's is a little outdated. Their bracketology was last done before the Houston game on the 17th, and they had UCF as one of the first 4 out. So they were 3-3 at the time in quadrant 1. I actually think the Houston loss helps them in that case because it gives them an extra quadrant 1. They're 3-4 in quadrant 1. They have 5 losses. So obviously 1's in quadrant 2. So you have nothing in 3 and 4. So the fact that almost all your losses are quadrant 1 losses actually bodes well for you. You're playing tough competition. The net likes that.
That's a great point.
Let's look at CBS. CBS actually has, as of the 20th, which is as we're talking right, today, as we're recording, they have them as a 9 seed in the Midwest region. So they have them in the dance if it happened today. So obviously, a lot more game left, but the fact that UCF's having these opportunities against quad 1 games, our opponents, and at 3 and 4, it's a good point right now, but that's why I say they have to get a couple more in there. They have to steal a win somewhere to stay on that radar, not fall back, because 3 quad 1 games are in the win column are great, but if you end up like 3-8, that's not great. So you got to find a way to kind of turn this narrative around, but you have to be encouraged that you're getting towards you're in the 3rd week of January. You got a month and change left in the season, and you are in the thick of NCAA tournament talks. I mean, you have to be thrilled as a UCF fan.
Yeah, there's some things about the net I don't really understand. I mean, if we're talking about the kind, I'm looking at BYU at 11-6. They're 46 in the net right now. They played 5 quad 1 games and they've lost all of them. But they're 46 in the net right now.
I mean, it also goes back to the fact that UCF, has 5 games in quadrant 3 and 4 in quadrant 4. So you got to look at the whole picture.
Sure, but who
else has BYU played?
Those 3 quad 1 wins, though, to me, loom large over 0-5 in quad 1 right now, and we play the same. I mean, there's some things about the net I will not understand. I don't think that they're a bubble team right now. I think that they should be firmly in the field of 68, if you ask me. But that's just me, right? Like I don't think that BYU has a better resume than UCF right now.
Oh, I absolutely agree with you. The fact that UCF has these big wins, Texas A&M, Texas Tech, these were really big wins when you think about it, especially A&M, to get that season started. That I think is more valuable than anything BYU has done this year. But you know what? There's still time for the season to shake out. They don't. But don't worry, they have plenty of more time to shoot themselves in the foot and allow a team like a UCF, who does have the ability to beat legit teams, to go cause some more mayhem, because UCF is going to have an opportunity against BYU. They host them beginning of February. There's a chance to to get a solid win. I believe by that point they'll be viewed as quad 2 since it's a home game.
Yeah,
but still, that's that they're 0-1 in quad 2 games right now. They need every game they can get to bolster themselves, and even a quad 2 game has some value there.
For reference, that game is February 1st against BYU, and we hope that they aim the gun straight at their foot and shoot themselves in it on February 1st. But I think it's going to be fun to watch this journey for the Knights here on the hardwood. They've got a great opportunity. Once you get into dance, anything can happen. Baby. So we're hoping that the UCF Knights can pull off something down the stretch here. Andrew, I want to thank you for joining me. Before we get out of here, tell people where they can find you.
You can catch me on Twitter /X or Blue Sky at StatBoyDrew, and you can catch me writing on The Last Word on college football, a part of The Last Word on Sports family.
Guys, that's it. Thank you so much for making Locked On UCF your first listen of every day. For your second listen, go check out our friends over at Locked On Big 12. Our guy Drake Told leads the conversation in conference realignment news and pulls no punches when it comes to talking about every team in the Big 12, including the UCF Knights. Go check out Locked On Big 12 on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And you can find us here tomorrow on Locked On UCF.